What's the worst reason you hooked up with someone?
Experience 1. Late to the game, but I had a friend in college who shared a resemblance to me. We go to parties and introduce ourselves as brother and sister the whole night, really play the part. Then we'd end each night making out furiously in front of everyone. Experience 2. Update: I completely forgot I had posted this and was wondering why I had notifications. Thank you, everyone. Although that might be the best, I have plenty more awkward intercourse stories. My first long-term girlfriend cheated on me when she went off to college. We broke up. About 2 months later, she got hit by a transportation bus and lost her leg. We had seen each other a couple of times after her recovery and hooked up. Years later, I met another girl with the same first name through a different ex, and she had lost her leg too. I was thinking what the odds of someone else being able to say they slept with 2 girls with the same name with both missing a leg. So, I did the deed. Experience 3. She told me her therapist told her to have intercourse with me. So, I obliged. Who am I to argue with a professional? Edit: the whole story. I met this woman on Tinder, and we hit it off pretty quickly. Got a date set up and it went well, but I just didn't feel that spark. Tried 2 or 3 more dates and it just never clicked, unfortunately. I told her as such and offered to her friends because I did enjoy her company and she said it was cool with her. So, we were friends for a bit, maybe 2 weeks? Then one day we happened to be at the same bar and ran into each other. Apparently, she wasn't 100% okay with just being friends and was really interested in me to the point of telling her therapist as such. She was already seeing one, I wasn't the reason she was seeing one. She explained her feelings and I as politely as I could explained that I just didn't have the same feelings. She got upset and said she understood, but she walked away crying. About a week or so goes by and we happen to run into each other at the same bar again. I was outside smoking and very, very drunk. It was nearly closing time, so I was about to leave. She comes up to me and makes small talk for a minute until she just blurts out,
"My therapist said I should have sex with you."
In my drunken state, I remember saying back,
Well, I can't argue with that.
I had called a cab a few minutes before, and they showed up not long after. We got in the cab and got back to my place where we got busy. So, we're getting hot and heavy and I'm still considerably drunk. She isn't. She just hung out at the bar with her friends but didn't really drink. It was actually a ton of fun and we were both really enjoying ourselves. Now for the best bit. I have a position I've always really enjoyed where I'm standing up and I pick my partner up and go at it that way. It's why I like it, but I do. Anyway, keep in mind I'm quite drunk still, but I picked her up and started at it. Well, a little side note is that I'm about 5 feet 10 inches 190 pounds, and I do manual labor for a living, so I'm quite strong. This woman was actually a little taller than me. I think she was 6 feet 1 inch. And she weighed probably around 240 pounds. I typically would date women who were considerably shorter than that and weighed less, just my type, I guess. Not calling the woman in this story fat either, she wasn't. So going at it for like 30 seconds while I'm standing up and carrying her basically. Well, since I was so drunk, I didn't realize that I couldn't actually support her very well and that I was slowly letting her fall. Then my strength gave out and wouldn't you know, I dropped this poor woman right onto the corner of my entertainment center and into the floor. I freaked out and thought I had killed her or something. She's rolling on the floor going between laughing and shouting in pain. There was a giant scratch all the way up her back from her booty to her shoulder and it was already bruising. She played it off like it was okay though and said she still wanted to finish, so hey, I still wasn't going to argue. She seemed okay other than shocked. And definitely bruised and battered. We ended up finishing the fun a little while later and she stayed the night. She left the next morning and I never heard from her again after that lol. She never messaged me, and once I remembered what happened I was too embarrassed to reach out at all. Experience 4. She was divorced after her marriage failed within a year. The guy was a total piece of crap. We had been very close friends for almost 15 years at the time, though it somehow never worked out. Hardly any gap where we both were single. Anyway, we met up loads after her recent divorce. She started being rather upfront about wanting to see me, which was somewhat out of character for her being so adamant towards me, and started hinting at it at some point, but being a man means I only really got those hints in retrospect. Then I met a woman online, a very nice woman, and had a first date with her. My best friend wanted to meet up again, so we did. We went for breakfast. She was on about how her ex-husband neglected her sexual needs for most of the time, followed by telling me how good she thinks I looked and how we should just get it over with. So, I decided to go for it. Since I'd only been on one date with this woman, I'd always felt my friend was very attractive, so let's go. We went to my place, drank tea for a bit. She repeatedly told me not to get feelings, which I had in the past, then got it on and it was amazing. She thanked me afterwards. I asked if we were going to make this a regular thing and she said it all depended on me and how I would act on future dates with that woman I met, then left home. After I kind of processed what happened, I went to my best friend, who happens to be gay, and he said it was about time we got it out of the way, followed by if I was going to have intercourse with my other friends now. 2 spoilers, I didn't. I decided to plan a second date with the woman I met. I didn't develop feelings for my close friend afterwards. She had some issues she needed to work out, which I needed to do in the past and have, with her support as well. I met up with my close friend a few times after. It wasn't that awkward, but she kept dropping huge hints like how she could never have a one-night stand, feelings had to be involved. I still didn't realize she meant she had developed feelings for me, 'cause men need the subtlety of a sledgehammer when it comes to this. I kind of laughed it off, thinking we had a solid enough friendship to do such a thing. Besides, I was still dating that woman I had met. Quite soon she started getting colder and eventually told me she wanted to break off contact completely. I wasn't too surprised, since the friendship we had shifted enormously, especially in retrospect. Later the woman I was dating told me my close friend had given her some snarky behind my back and she did not deserve this at all. In conclusion, I can honestly say my close friend and I literally screwed up our friendship. I don't regret a thing in that regard. The woman I was dating is my wife of almost 4 years now and we have a son together. The only thing I regret is the timing, right in between the first and second date of my now wife. She deserves more than that. Before people ask, my wife knows. I told her before we decided to move in with one another since she deserved to know what she was getting into. I told her it was out of character for me to do such a thing, that I only regret the timing, but that in the past I've made it a thing to only go on dates with one woman at the time. I felt it wasn't cheating, we weren't an item back then, but the timing made it questionable, and she needed to know before we got to the serious stage of living together. Experience 5. Noticed a girl picking up on numerous drunk guys at a party, taking them to a back room for a few minutes each, then coming back out, with the guys smiling. I was horny and wanted in on that action but was too shy to act on it. Didn't matter, she eventually set her sights on me, and I went. While I was in the midst of it, she was bragging that I was the 14th guy that night. Didn't matter to me at the time, but I felt disgusted afterwards. I should mention this was pre-AIDS time. I did get an STD though and had to go to the free clinic for a shot the next week. Experience 6. To get revenge on my ex cheating, she was her little in her sorority or some BS. She had a terrible personality but was very hot. Experience 7. Almost dated in high school. Had a falling out in college and didn't talk for years until we both attended a mutual friend's wedding. We were the only single people there and neither wanted to go home empty-handed. So, we didn't. Experience 8. Similar thing, but it was to get revenge on a friend for stealing my ex. I was studying abroad for the summer, and while that was going on, he was hanging out almost every day with my then girlfriend. When I came back, they both sat me down to explain how they'd been spending a lot of time together and wanted to pursue things. It was less a "we want your blessing" and more of a "this is what's going to happen, so you have to deal with it." Sure enough, a few weeks later she broke up with him, and he called me to apologize, saying how he never should have done that to a friend, blah blah blah. I was still pretty damn hurt, and it broke my trust in him, but I was too exhausted to care anymore. Fast forward a few months and he had started seeing a new girl. They were still in the early stages of dating and nothing official, but he was really into her. So of course, when I ran into her at a friend's birthday party, I railed the crap out of her after some back and forth flirting. The younger me was both horny and vindictive. Experience 9. Because she asked. I was visiting a friend in a different part of the state, and she introduced me to one of her friends, and she gave me my AOL username. This was back in the late 90s. A few days after returning home, I received a message from that person asking for a one-night stand. Experience 10. We were bored. This was in the mid-aughts when smartphones were not a thing yet and people still used CD players and DVDs. We both had no money or place to go, and after doing nothing but talking with each other for 3 days, we felt like we knew each other pretty well. I remember her complaining that,
"There's nothing to do out here."
So, I jokingly said back,
Well, we could always do each other.
expecting her to punch me in the arm like she did when I made a comment about her boobs growing when she was talking about needing to go bra shopping. However, instead, she just sighed and said, "We might as well," before getting up and going inside her grandma's apartment. At first, I was a little confused and thought she misheard me, so I followed. However, once I was inside and saw her taking off her shirt, I knew she heard me perfectly well. Experience 11. To save someone else's relationship. A guy in our friend group that we only kept around out of pity was a big fat dude, arrogant, and just not a great person. Actually met a nice woman that he didn't deserve. What did the dumbass do? Invite another girl out with all of us in an attempt to make her jealous, maybe? Understandably, his girlfriend was upset, and because she was such a nice woman, I jumped on the hand grenade. Experience 14. Obligation. And a bit of tipsiness. Felt bad about saying no to her advances, especially in front of her friends as we were all leaving, so went with it. I'm sure the intercourse was horrible for her too, and then I half-lied about having to catch the last bus that night. Obviously, my idiotic/conceited attempt at making someone feel better made her feel worse when I made a quick run for it after. Experience 15. Hooked up with a cougar on an airplane because she wanted to thank me for my service. I was 21 flying back from A school when American Airlines upgraded my seat to first class. They sat me next to this cougar who had to be in her mid-40s and happened to work for the VA. We talked for a while, and she kept buying me shots when all of a sudden, she looked around and said, "When I get up, wait 2 minutes, then come to the airplane bathroom," when the stewardess pushed the tray to the rear. I did as instructed and was damn near torn apart by this woman in the worst smelling place ever. The weird part was everyone knew, and no one said anything to us, lol. After the plane ride, she gave me a hug and her business card and told me if I ever needed VA help, send her an email. Experience 16. I was bored and a virgin. I was sitting in an old-ass car with my friend and 2 guys smoking weed. The 3 of them were having a conversation about something sexual. I was in the back focusing on the joint when they all turned and looked at me asking my opinion. I hit the joint, shrugged my shoulders, and said I had no idea, I'm a virgin. The car went silent. I passed the joint. The guy driving asked me if I'd like to lose my virginity. Again, I shrugged and said sure. The two guys paper, rock, scissored it. Passenger 1. Everyone got out but us. We drove to the local park and did the deed. Afterwards, he told me I was going to be addicted to intercourse. I laughed, said not if that's what it's about, buttoned my pants, climbed back up front, and silently waited for him to take me back to my friend's house. Never seen him again. Experience 17. I hooked up with a lesbian because my girlfriend was hooking up with her girlfriend behind my back and we were both mad about it. Haven't seen her since, but she was probably the top 5 hottest girl I ever slept with. It wasn't about that though, just spite. I didn't even really want to have intercourse that night. Experience 18. I was wasted, and the last guy at the bar. The bartender decided to keep them flowing for a little while after closing. She's 6 feet 4 inches and weighed in at probably 220, 230-ish. She wanted a little more than just a tip. She said we're friends, right? Well, yes, we had been for years. I went to school with her younger, very good-looking sister. She said okay, then let's go. I said I'm good, I'll walk. I lived a few blocks away. That's not what she meant. She said,
This is the closest you're going to get to Katie, so let's go.
fair enough, I obliged. Experience 19. I grew up Mormon. My whole childhood it was pressed on us no intercourse before marriage, intercourse is sacred, intercourse is only for reproduction. Nah, I didn't subscribe to that. What I did subscribe to, however unintentionally and unconsciously, is that women submit to men. The purpose of women is to exist for men. To make their lives better, to let them lead, to bear children in their name. This, plus all the modesty and purity culture and shame kind of internalized the idea that I exist for a man's pleasure. But I didn't care about intercourse before marriage or marriage at all. I'm a feminist and have no interest in bending to a man's will. What is left? Intercourse. By 19 I had left the church and was going off on hookups left and right. I never had a good reason why. I was never even attracted to them. I was never interested in intercourse itself. However, having intercourse with men made me feel, however unintentionally and unconsciously, that I had a purpose. That I existed for something, that I had a value of some kind. The emotional transaction was what I cared about. These men use and abuse me. I happily go on my way feeling like I fulfilled my purpose and that my existence had meaning. It took me years to realize what I was doing, and now I am haunted. I'll never forgive the Mormon Church. And we wonder why I was in rehab at 21. Experience 20. Low self-esteem. Edit, instead of finding people who loved me, I found my validation through body count. I felt my success as a man depended on what kind of women I slept with and what quantity, how much money I made, and what I produced for society. Instead of loving myself, I sought love through others. I've had bad intercourse with extremely knockout gorgeous women, while the best and most intense and intimate was based far from looks. I've learned I could have had intercourse about 3 times a day over my lifetime into my late 20s if you did the math, but nothing put me to sleep like a good cuddle at night and a stroking of my hair, being held in someone's arms with gentle kisses pressed against my cheeks. I've thrown that away because I was brought up believing that this is the best way to perform my masculinity. I declared to let society and the status quo dictate what I should like, and only to proceed with its blessings. My validation was the lustful and covetous looks from strangers. I became addicted to new people, and it made me become lonelier as these people became ghosts, leaving my life without closure. I am an insomniac, and the loneliness keeps me up at night. It has caused me nothing but pain and suffering. Please hold the people you love at night and be kind and forgiving to one another. Look for teachable moments and try to heal the world around you. The people who hurt us most are sometimes the ones that need love the most. Edit 2. For those of you with body issues, just be sure you are healthy. The people you love will grow to fit your visage to pleasure. Some of my best relationships started off with no physical attraction to the person, and through time and comfort would become lustful for them, and I did not expect that. The most beautiful thing I see is someone who loves themselves. Sexy is a state of being, not a skin you can slip into. And ugly only rots from the inside out.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.